Good morning and welcome to Daily Devotions with Pastor Joe. We're looking at the life of Samson once again, starting with Judges 14:20, where it is talking about after his wedding how he had went back home, and so his father gave the woman who was supposed to be his wife to his companion, whom he had used as a friend, and that would be the best man at his wedding. Had taken her because Samson was absent and couldn't fulfill the duty of becoming a husband because he went back home upset, and actually upset at his wife. But now he's going to be upset even more because his wife was passed on to someone else. But it came to pass, within a while after, in the time of wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with a kid, and he said, "I will go in to my wife into the chamber." But her father would not suffer him to go in, and her father said, "I verily thought that thou hadst utterly hated her, therefore I gave her to thy companion. Is not her younger sister fairer than she? Take her, I pray thee, instead of her." And so it was actually the woman's father who had went ahead and passed the daughter on. I didn't realize it was the woman's father. First time reading through this in a while earlier, and so... But the woman's father thought, well, Samson must be upset and displeased and doesn't want her. But he was coming in with an offering. He actually had dressed a kid, a young goat, and had prepared it perhaps as a meal, maybe. And it was within a while after. So we don't know how long it was. Could have been a couple of weeks, could have been a couple of months, who knows. But then it says, "And her father said, I verily thought thou hast utterly hated her." He says, "Hey, her younger sister's even prettier, take her instead." And Samson said concerning them, "Now shall I be more blameless than the Philistines, though I do them a displeasure." Or in other words, they've done me an even greater wrong than any wrong that I've done to them. Verse 4, "And Samson went and caught 300 foxes." Now, that's pretty crazy right there. He caught 300 foxes. Where did he keep them? How many of them was he able to hold at one time before he had his hands too full? But he caught 300 foxes. Maybe he put them in boxes. And took firebrands. So he took a torch and stuck between them. It says, "And turned tail to tail." So he took their long, bushy tails, tied them together in a knot, and it says, "and put a firebrand in the midst between the two tails." So he made a knot with their tails and stuck the fire between them, stuck the torch between the tails of the foxes. And when he had set the brands on fire, he let them go into the standing corn of the Philistines, and burnt up both the shocks and also the standing corn, with the vineyards and olives. And so he set loose 300 foxes in pairs. So that would have been 150 pairs of foxes. And what he did is he who knows if he built a little fence of some sort first, but he got these foxes together. He tied them tail to tail, stuck a torch between them. And then when he got ready, he took them, probably grabbed the torch and picked it up with the two tails and lit the torch on fire, and the foxes get scared and terrified, and they're running, trying to get away from the fire, but fighting each other the whole time and working their way through this maze of a cornfield, so much so that they burned up all the corn and even got into the vineyards and destroyed the Philistines' olive gardens. In verse 6 it says, "Then the Philistines said, Who hath done this? And they answered, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he had taken his wife and given her to this companion. And the Philistines came up and burnt her and her father with fire." And so here she had done all of this trouble to avoid this punishment, and ended up suffering it anyway. Her and her father and perhaps all of their household got burnt up. It says in verse 7, "And Samson said unto them, Though ye have done this, yet will I be avenged of you, and after that I will cease." Or in other words, he says, I'm still not through. I still have some more punishment to bring to you guys, but just one more time. I still owe you one. In verse 8, "And he smote them, hip and thigh, with a great slaughter, and he went down and dwelt in the top of the rock Etam. Then the Philistines went up and pitched in Judah, and spread themselves in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, Why are ye come up against us? And they answered, To bind Samson are we come up, to do to him as he hath done to us. So he beat him up and left him go and went up to this place. Left whoever was survived of it, but he great slaughter, it says. He went up, and the Philistines came up and pitched against Judah and spread themselves around Lehi, and the men of Judah were scared out of their minds, and they said, well, we're here to get Samson. Then 3,000 men of Judah went to the top of the rock Etam, and said to Samson, knowest thou not that the Philistines are rulers over us? What is this that thou hast done unto us? And he said unto them, as they did unto me, so have I done unto them. And they said unto him, we are come down to bind thee, that we may deliver thee into the hand of the Philistines. And Samson said unto them, swear unto me that ye will not fall upon me yourselves. Or in other words, just so long as you promise you won't kill me, I'm not going to fight. And they spake unto him, saying, no, but we will bind thee fast and deliver thee into their hands, but surely we will not kill thee. And they bound him with 2 new cords, brand new ropes, tough, strong, not worn out, not beat up, new cords, and brought him up from the rock. And when he came unto Lehi, the Philistines shouted against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. And the cords that were upon his arms became as flax that was burnt with fire, and his bands loosed from off his hands. So he just pulled, flexed, the ropes burst like flax burnt with fire, just shredded apart. So he blew the cords off of himself and ripped the cords off of his hands. It says in verse 15, and he found a new jawbone of an ass, and put forth his hand, and took it, and slew 1,000 men therewith. So he took this jawbone from a donkey, and killed 1,000 men. And Samson said, with the jawbone of an ass, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of an ass have I slain 1,000 men. And it came to pass, when he had made an end of speaking, that he cast away the jawbone out of his hand, and called the place Ramath Lehi. And he was sore athirst, and called on the Lord, and said, thou hast given this great deliverance into the hand of thy servant, and now shall I die for thirst, and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? But God clave an hollow place that was in the jaw, and there came water thereout. And when he had drunk, his spirit came again, and he revived. Wherefore he called the name thereof En-Hakkor, which is in Lehi unto this day. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. Now this isn't the end of Samson. We've still got a long ways to go. This is normally the statement that comes right before each judge was finished and over with. But this isn't the end of Samson. He's still got a pretty mighty couple of things that happen in his life after this. But you see, over and over again, God introduced moments into Samson's life where he was being teased and taunted and hurt and beaten down by the Philistines. And the Philistines, they came and they attacked him. They were rude and they were mean, and they killed his wife and father-in-law. They caused him before that to lose his wife, who he loved so much, that pleased him so much. So many different things. And so with all of that in mind, the Philistines are really causing a lot of their own hurt. But then when Samson goes and takes his revenge on them, God, of course, places power into his muscles and helps him to do to accomplish what he's been called to do. But then the men get upset and say, hey, why did he do this to us? Well, it was their fault. They started it. And ultimately, it's just bit after bit of God showing his strength through Samson and using Samson in a way to show that God has mighty power and that he's able to do things that we could never imagine. And so from the foxes, the 300 foxes, to burn down all of the corn and vineyards, to him coming and beating hip and thigh, I think it said, all of these men, hip and thigh, right here, smote them hip and thigh in great slaughter in verse 8. And then they came, 3,000 men came up against him from Judah, saying, hey, we don't want any trouble, Samson. We've got all these men here in case you start it. But they promised not to kill him. Then the Philistines, when he came down to fight them, and they shouted his name out, the Philistines shouted against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came on him, and he picked up a jawbone of a donkey. So pretty strong little jawbone from freshly dead donkey, so it's not something that has been sitting for a long time and rotted. It's a new jawbone, and he uses it, and I don't know how he kills them, but he kills 1,000 men with it, and is so thirsty when it's all said and done. He says, God, I'm dying of thirst. You've brought me here to deliver Israel and do all these things, and you've delivered me from these 1,000 Philistines, but now I'm going to die of thirst and fall into their hands after all. And God caused water to start coming out of the jawbone. Now that's an interesting story. That's pretty amazing to think about. And if he went forward from that day and for 20 years was judging Israel, that means from the start of his work as a judge, perhaps at his wedding, he went 20 years from that day until his death. And I don't think it's until until Delilah deceived him, but I think it was until his death that he was 20 years. So a huge story in the events in the life of Samson, one of the greatest judges, one of the most recorded judges, and yet one of the most sad cases of what happens when you disobey the Lord. So we'll just keep looking forward to that as we go forward here. For one, I think he very often was doing things out of an incorrect motive. He was doing them for his own vengeance and anger rather than to deliver Israel and Judah from the Philistines. If he would have instead rose up and said, hey, guys, it's time to deliver you from the Philistines. God has given me the strength, and I want you to join with me. They could have completely destroyed the Philistines. Everything could have been great, but he didn't. And so I think that's, in large part, he was too proud and definitely took too much of the glory and the credit, and too much of what he was doing it out of a desire for revenge and vengeance on the Philistines, rather than for deliverance from them for the Lord's people. So, all right, let me know down in the comment section below what you think of this. What have you gotten out of it? Out of the life of Samson so far? What do you think of the different events here that we've talked about in his life today? And let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, share this video with a friend. God bless. Have a wonderful day in the Lord. See you tomorrow on another Daily Devotions with Pastor Joe.